The great and powerful prophet Elijah lived like 900 years before Christ. So this is after the death of Solomon. And he lived, his message and his purpose was conversion and purification for people to turn back to God. And he lived during the reign of King Ahab. And he was a wicked king. And he married a pagan woman from one of the countries outside of Israel. And together they instituted pagan worship into Israel and built all these altars and worship places for the pagan god Baal, B-A-A-L. And not only did they do that, which was an abomination, they systematically killed all the prophets. So on the order of like 500. And you think of a prophet more like a priest, somebody that proclaims the Old Testament readings and stuff and understands them and explains. So that would be the prophets. So they systematically killed all the prophets except Elijah, who evaded them. And after calling down a drought for 3 years, and at the end of that drought, Elijah comes out of hiding. And he challenges the prophets of Baal, like they had like 450 prophets of Baal, to a duel, a sacrificial duel, and where they call on their God to consume the sacrifice that had been made. And of course, there's no Baal God, and so nothing happens on that one. And God just sends down this flame and just consumes even the rocks that the sacrifice were on for him. And then through the power of God, Elijah destroys all the prophets of Baal. And when Elijah left this earth, he didn't die. He was taken up to heaven in a fiery chariot that took him up into the sky. And so all the Jews of Jesus' time, they know what a powerful prophet Elijah was. So 400 years after Elijah's time, the prophet Malachi says he's coming again. And I'll read you that just a little bit. It says, "Lo, I will send you Elijah the prophet," so he's coming again, "before the day of the Lord, before the Messiah comes, the great and terrible day, to turn the hearts of fathers to their children." So again, conversion. And then 300 years after that, 180 years before Christ, the reading we had this morning from Sirach says basically the same thing. Elijah's going to come back, and he's going to herald the coming of Jesus. Okay, now let's go to today's gospel. Jesus, Peter, James, and John are coming down from the top of Mount Tabor, where they just witnessed the transfiguration. Jesus had been standing with Moses and Elijah and talking to them. And of course, the apostles kind of in a stupor. But as they're coming down, they're recalling the prophecies of Malachi and Sirach that Elijah's supposed to come again. And Jesus tells them, "You're absolutely right. He's supposed to come again." And he has already come. And he came in the spirit of John the Baptist. And 3 chapters earlier in Matthew's gospel, St. John had been beheaded by Herod because he called out the adultery that Herod was living with his wife. And so Jesus says that he's going to suffer a similar fate. In other words, he's going to die at the cruel death at the hands of the Romans for there. And so the great prophet Elijah, he preached conversion and change of heart, turn back to God. And that's exactly what John the Baptist did. Same thing, same spirit of Elijah there. And so today, maybe we should ask God for the grace of conversion for our hearts, so that we can open up our hearts to Jesus, just as John the Baptist and Elijah were opening up hearts of men to turn back to God. Pray for the grace of conversion so that we too can turn back to God, not only for his second coming, but even for the coming that he's going to be here with us today in the Eucharist. Amen.